Hey, hey, hey. All right, go ahead and pull out Community Ecology Part 2 and grab you some pens and highlighters so you can write. Okay, this is actually a really interesting one, I think, and it's all about the trophic levels or feeding. You write troph, T-R-O-P-H, means feeding. So how do organisms consume food? So this is the feeding structure, and it always reminds me of when I see it in the triangle form like this. Do y'all remember in elementary school when you saw like how you should eat, and you should eat, the majority of your meal should be proteins, and then you should have some carbs, and you should have milk. And do y'all remember like a feeding? I don't remember how I'm supposed to eat. I probably should remember that, but I don't. But anyway, so that's all what it always kind of reminds me of when I see it like that. But go ahead and let's look at our notes, and it says feeding relationship. And you want to know that matter cycles. And what that means, it says materials get recycled within the environment, such as, do me a favor, right beside the cycles, you got the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, and the phosphorus cycle. Right? So matter is cycled, and that's what these blue lines are. They go up and they come over and they're back, right? So water is continuously recycled. Nitrogen, carbon, and phosphorus are all continuously recycled. So you wrote that in. Water, carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. But energy isn't. Energy flows through the trophic level. And it says energy flows. Sunlight enters the earth. So here's your sunlight down at the bottom. Sunlight enters the earth. It is received by plants and made into sugar. Okay, so picture this. You're laying out, you're drinking some water, and you can make sugar. Right? So plants make sugar with sunlight and water. Coolest thing ever. We already talked about that with photosynthesis. But the sun allows producers, plants and algae, to make the sugar that the herbivores can eat. And so it says, then the sugars are passed from organisms to the next organism by consuming, but they eat each other, right? The smaller organisms eat the producers, not even small cows, right? They eat producers. And then so on, that gets eaten, that gets eaten. Eventually, all the energy becomes heat. So some of the energy is lost as heat with each transfer, which then the heat energy leaves Earth, which demonstrates the second law of thermodynamics. And that's all energy is going towards, circle the word entropy. All energy is going towards chaos, right? All energy is going towards chaos. So, okay, let's take a second and talk about this picture. The sunlight is giving producers the energy to make, solar energy to make sugar. And that's your plants and algae. Then the primary consumers eat the primary producers. So those are going to be your herbivores. And then the secondary consumers eat the primary consumers. So you can see the energy came from the sun to the producers, to the primary consumers, to the secondary consumers. And then there could be up here a tertiary consumer. There could be a third level of consumer, so a fourth level of energy. But sometimes there's not. Wonder why? Why would there not be more levels of energy? Well, if you're thinking because we ran out of energy, you're right. There's only so many levels because at each level, look at this pink, at each level, energy is being lost as heat. So you're only getting, skip down to number 2, you're only getting 10% of the energy you're consuming. So when you eat some lettuce, you're only getting 10% of the lettuce's energy. The other 90%, the lettuce used or it was lost as heat. So the lettuce used energy to reproduce and grow, so you only got 10%. So the 10% rule is saying that you only get a certain amount of energy. Okay, and so here's a food chain where you can kind of take a second to look at this. The zooplankton eats the phytoplankton. So right here, oops. Here we go. The zooplankton eats the phytoplankton. So the energy goes from the phytoplankton to the zooplankton, which goes to the carnivore, which goes to this other carnivore, which goes to the next one, right? And so you can see the little grasshopper eats the sunflower, and then the mouse eats the grasshopper, and then the snake eats the mouse, and then the bird eats the snake. And so energy, the arrows go where the energy is going. And so the carnivore up top has less energy than the plant because they're losing 90%. The 10% law says that only 10% is gained. That's crazy to think that we're losing that much energy. And so here's an example. If you'll look right here, it shows the actual joules of, energy. That J is joules. So each time, only 10% of the energy is passed on. Right? And so what we were just looking at, that's a food chain. But this is a food web that shows how the different organisms eat different organisms. So like if you look right here, the krill. So let's focus on the krill for a second. Oops. There we go. And I'm writing in red. Okay. So there's your krill. Well, the krill is being eaten by and the seal eater, crab eater, seal, whatever, bird, and the fish. So all those 5 right there eat the krill. But if you'll look at purple, the krill eats the phytoplankton and the herbivorous plankton. So you can kind of see how that goes. Different organisms, they eat multiple things and multiple things eat them. So that's a food web. All right, take a second. Here's what I want you to do next. Try to do this without looking at your notes if you can. So take a second and fill this in. Okay, so write in, just try to do this on your notes. Write in, this is nowhere on your notes, that's good. The trophic level structure. So what would go here, what would go on the next one, what would go on the next one, and you know that, why is it a triangle? Because it's showing energy. This is an energy pyramid, right? Okay, so try to fill that in, and I'll see you tomorrow.